So it's been the new year for more than a minute, and I just wanted to give you a quick look at my wall of things to be read. I think Peter Pan is going to be on indefinite hold, though. It's still sitting here, but I think it'll go back on a shelf. And let's do some Edward Gorey drawn fairy tales with James Donnelly text. We'll just start with Red Riding Hood and move on from there. I'm not going to do them all in a row. I'm going to probably put the book down and come back to it after a couple of other read-alouds. But Little Red Riding Hood, drawings by Edward Gorey, text by James Donnelly and Cecily Donnelly. There was once a girl who lived with her mother in a cottage at the edge of a great dark forest. She went about in a bright red cloak with a useful hood to keep the rain off her head. For this reason, nearly everyone called her Little Red Riding Hood. One day, Little Red Riding Hood's mother said, "Dearie, your old granny is feeling unwell and she has been having trouble sleeping. Come put on your hood and take this poppy cake to her and this little pot of valerian jam." Little Red Riding Hood's mother knew poppy cake and valerian jam to be excellent remedies for sleepiness, or for sleeplessness. She continued, "You know the way to her house in the forest, but see that you keep to the path. Don't wander, don't dally, and don't dream. Don't take shortcuts and keep yourself to yourself." Little Red Riding Hood was of an age to be slightly impatient with instructions. For babies, she thought. Mother, I've been to Granny's before, she thought, but she was not yet of an age to say these things aloud. It is true that Little Red Riding Hood had gone often to Granny's, but always with her mother. Granny's cottage was not very far away, but the path took many twists and turns. It could be hard to follow in the deep dark shadow of the forest. The journey could seem unduly long to a small, though stalwart girl. A good way into the woods, Little Red Riding Hood paused to rest and enjoy the local sounds. Birds boldly cheeping, squirrels bushily scrabbling, and the cool perfume of pine duff, leaf mold, and the shy forest flowers, woodbine, May apple, and wild turnip. There came a new sound, a padding footstep, soft but heavy, careful yet clumsy. The sound drew near. There's the wolf. Whomp! And a minor cloud of dust. Something leapt into the path. Little Red Riding Hood hastily arose. Her eyes met the curious gaze of a great gray wolf. Little Red Riding Hood had heard her share of wolf stories, how the sleigh carrying the Count Mazurka and all his gold had been found horseless, and the countless overturned in the snow among a welter of sharp-clawed paw prints, how lame Edgar's beard turned white overnight while he clung terrified to a high branch, the black mountain pack gazing hungrily up at him till dawn. But here and now, above the forest's perpetual twilight, the noonday sun was blazing. She was heartened by its comforting presence. Furthermore, Little Red Riding Hood had never heard of a wolf that went marauding on 2 legs, upright as herself, or one that smiled such a friendly smile, or spoke. "Good day to you, little girl. Would you say meaty or scant? What fortune to find ourselves on this fine, broad, well-lit, well-traveled path. About 50 pounds, are you? Shall we walk along together for a bit of company? I'm only going as far as," here the wolf muttered inaudibly, hum, 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 hum. "And I am taking poppy cake and jam to my granny's, the little yellow house in the clearing. Do you know it? About a mile or a half mile or a mile and a half down this path." Little Red Riding Hood recalled her mother's instructions. "But I am to keep myself to myself. Lovely to meet you, though, I'm sure. Goodbye now." "In truth," replied the wolf, "I too enjoy a solitary stroll, the better to appreciate this excellent forest, so deep and dark, so vast, so lonely. But here's a word to the wise. I see you are wise, and perhaps a sturdy, even a plump little girl. Not a quarter mile from here, the wolf continued, is a sunny clearing, and there grow flowers of a crimson to rival your own red cloak. And from there you can walk but a little way to the west and find the path again. It's as good as short ribs, as a shortcut. I suggest you pick some pretty bonny flowers for your grandma. Little Red Riding Hood gave this idea some thought. She was not a timid girl, far from it, but her life so far had scarcely tested her bravery. Also, she was a proud girl. Granny will be so pleased, she thought, and Mama so impressed. This shows real maturity. She thought she needn't mention that the flowers were the wolf's idea, nor indeed that she had met a wolf and spoken with him. Why give Mama and Granny cause to worry? Finding the flowery clearing just where the wolf said it would be, Little Red Riding Hood set about picking a fine bouquet. She did not see the wolf as he hastened down the path to Granny's cottage. I think we can see his tail right there. Well, Little Red Riding Hood picked flowers, the great gray wolf, no true friend to man or girl, made his way to Granny's. He went awkwardly on his hind legs, but no one could convince him that his upright posture lacked elegance. He knocked gently at the cottage door. "Who's there?" came Grandmother's voice, age-worn but sweet. The wolf chafed his forepaws one against the other. He swallowed several times. This would be the worst, or in wolf terms, the best wickedness of his long and hideous career. For what he had in mind was a 2-course meal followed by a poppy cake dessert. Too bad, he thought, that he would have to have the main course first and the appetizer second. Coaxing his voice into a horrid falsetto, he squeaked like a balloon. "'Tis I, poor dear, ailing, helpless old Grandmama, Little Red Riding Hood, with a basket of treats. Open up." Granny was a little nettled by this brash greeting. She was also mildly alarmed by Little Red Riding Hood's new harsh voice. But of course she loved her granddaughter, brash or not, and she really was ill and didn't much want to clamber out of bed and peek discreetly at her visitor through a door crack. And so she replied, come in, my dear. Do come in." The wolf required no further invitation. In a flurry of unspeakable glee and gluttony, the wicked beast swallowed Granny whole with a great gargling gulp, whose echoes set the crockery wobbling on its shelves. Thinking regretfully, "I must try to remember to chew my victims," he spat out her linen bedcap, her spectacles, and the novel she had been reading. He put on the cap and the eyeglasses. He glanced at the book, a potboiler called The Tea Cozy Crime by Edward Gorey, and tossed it aside. And then he leapt into Granny's bed and pulled up the coverlet to his bristly snout. Perhaps I should write a book, he thought, contented. My memoirs, so that less accomplished fiends might learn from my glorious example deeds of mayhem. The wolf yawned hungrily. I must stay alert. No time for a nap. All was now ready for the second course. Little Red Riding Hood found the door open. Grandmother did look ill. "Oh, Granny, I've brought you a poppy cake to help you sleep and a pot of valerian jam, also to help you sleep, and a big round bouquet picked by myself." "Come here, little child," rasped the wolf, "and let me look at you. Closer, closer, confound these old spectacles." The wolf squinted at Little Red Riding Hood through spit-smeared eyeglasses, and Little Red Riding Hood squinted back. "Why, Grandmother," she said, "what big smeary eyes you have. The better to see you with, except for these spectacles. Oof, ow!" Deep in the wolf's red stomach, eaten but unbeaten, Granny was kicking and elbowing. "Ugh! Arg!" Granny stepped on the wolf's kidneys. Little Red Riding Hood looked sidelong at the gnarled, calloused feet that protruded from beneath the coverlet. What ugly slippers, she thought, but politely did not say. What big, strong, hairy hands you have, Grandmother! An icy trickle of doubt and dread began its slow journey down Red Riding Hood's spine. "The better to hug you with. Oh, ouch, dearie!" the gray wolf replied, a little glowing ball of outrage formed in the girl, overcoming her fear. "And Grandmother, what great long yellow teeth you have! the better. Ouch, dang, to eat you. Oof, to eat you. Ow, to eat you up. And the wolf sprang from the bed, his jaws snapping like castanets. But Little Red Riding Hood did not hold still to be gobbled. She jinxed to the left and she juked to the right, and from her basket she withdrew the valerian jam in its little stone pot, and this she threw arrow straight into the wolf's greedy maw. He crunched it up. Little Red Riding Hood then hurled the poppy cake. This missile too caught the wolf square in the mush. Delicious, he cried, and paused in his pursuit. As Little Red Riding Hood scrambled under the bed, she heard the wolf yawn. Such a fine cake, and the jam with the crunchy bits in it. Excellent, excellent. Feeling a trifle sleepy I am. Little Red Riding Hood crawled to the corner farthest from the wolf. Perhaps a little rest. Job well done, and the second course can wait, and this time I'll remember to chew. Asleep on his feet, the wolf toppled backwards upon the bed. Within the cottage, the sleeping wolf drooled on Grandmother's pillow. Within the wolf, Granny sensed a change of circumstances and ceased to pinch his vitals. Little Red Riding Hood crawled with great care from under the bed. Outside, the wildwood rang to the wolf's guttural galloping snores. A wolf cutter, ambling the forest in search of dead fallen trees, heard and approached. Little Red Riding Hood scurried out to meet him. And so he ate my grandma, the great pig. At least I think he did, and furthermore he tried to fool me, and for that I will not stand. Little Red Riding Hood scarcely had time to finish explaining the situation before the woodcutter took action. He had been longing all day to cut something. Careful, oh, careful, whispered Little Red Riding Hood. The woodcutter wielded his dagger with a surgeon's delicacy. In a moment he had opened the slumbering wolf like a cheap, hairy suitcase. Granny stuck her head out and looked about her. Then, embarrassed, she fled to the pantry for a quick sponge bath and a change of nightgown. Little Red Riding Hood regathered her bouquet, aware that she might have some explaining to do. Oh, my dearest dear, said Granny, stroking the fierce little head beneath the hood. The woodcutter got you out, muttered Little Red Riding Hood, but he was acting at my direction. Behind them, the woodcutter, still rummaging in the wolf, gave a whistle of astonishment. Come here to me, ladies, he called, and help me look at this. To spare them another, even less appealing view of the wolf, he brought forth the two great sacks he had extracted from the creature's innards. Each sack bore the Mazurka crest, the ancient crest of a family long vanished and gone, and each clinked promisingly when the woodcutter jostled it. And indeed, the sacks contained the gold that had disappeared when the luckless Count Mazurka was devoured many years before. What a careless, wanton wolf, said Granny. Lupin glutinous, for a fact, said the woodcutter. Are we rich? Asked Little Red Riding Hood. The grown-ups looked at one another with dawning joy. Yes, said Grandmother, yes. We're rich, and me and this good man and your mother and her neighbors and the whole village, if you like. Granny hated disorder and mess. She took a few quick stitches in the wolf to tidy him up. The woodcutter said, My first purchase will be a medal for this dauntless girl. Grandmother said, Mine will be a new coverlet, I think, a new pillow, too. And I, said Little Red Riding Hood, shall have this wicked wolf stuffed in an attitude so frightening as to freeze the blood in one's veins, and he can be in my room, and I'll hang my medal on him when I take it off at night. But, being grown-ups, they talked her out of that idea, and she conceded that it was perhaps a little childless, which certainly didn't reflect her true self. The woodcutter used that wolf skin for many years to carry bundles of wood from the forest, and people who saw it were reminded of just who he was. Granny said, I think we'll walk back to your mother's now, and in the morning we can tell the village that everyone's rich. They returned to the house at the forest edge where Little Red Riding Hood lived with her mother, and Mamma said, Brave girl, oh great heart, and wept. And Granny fell fast asleep and awoke the next morning looking healthy and pink. and Little Red Riding Hood got her medal and wore it for a few days before she lost it in the creek. And she grew up to do important things, things that required both great bravery and excellent judgment. And that is the end.